Hawkcast, featuring your hosts Troy Donis and Sean McMahon, here to talk you through all things in the South Warrandyte cricket world.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Hawkcast. We have a reunion week this week, and just to really cap that off, we've brought in the big dogs, some of the real club legends here. We've got Jezza and Steve Garret to talk us through those years, tell us what it's like to go from, fair to say, a mediocre club right to the top of cricket in the Ringwood area. And your hosts, Troy Donis and Sean McMahon, will be taking you through it. Gaz, Jez, how you going?
G'day, boys.
It's great to have you here. Shawnee, do you remember facing Gaz as a young fella coming up through the nets?
Insofar as when the person is a gun and disrespectfully just blocks you and says, "Well bowled, champ." I got a few off spinners if I was very lucky at about 8:30 at night. With keep working there, son.
That was probably for the best for everyone, luckily. Today we're obviously going to talk about those three flags, the change in the club, the years after as well, and what the boys are doing now. Steve Garrett's a 5-time Steve Garret medalist. He obviously did so well that we even named the award after him at the end of his career. He's a life member. He captained the Chandler Premiership side. He was also a player for Richmond in Premier Cricket. We'll touch on that later as well. Jezza was there for all three premierships. You'd call him a bit of a culture captain, I think that'd be fair. He was great at leading the boys and...
allegedly first picked every week.
Allegedly, yep. Great sledger, I'm told. And also a very, very handy cricketer in his own right and a great leader around the club. Boys, can I ask each about how you started off playing cricket, your junior careers, and how you ended up at South Warrandyte?
You probably first, as you were the starting point.
Rightio. Obviously, just followed Dad around playing juniors. Started at Eastfield Cricket Club, and were there for a couple of years, and then went across to Ainsley Park, where Dad met Hanno and a few of the other crew that ended up over here, and hatched a plan to start some juniors over at South Warrandyte in the sort of early to mid-90s. So we all came across, I think, 93 or 94, and kicked off the juniors, which I think hadn't been here for quite a few years before that, and the rest is history.
How old were you?
First year of under 14, so 13.
13. So first ever juniors at South Warrandyte.
Not first ever juniors, but first juniors for a long time. So I think it might have been mid to late 80s. They hadn't had juniors. I think Brash might have been part of those sides, maybe even a Darren Johnson or Zeppa. But yeah, so it was pretty special to be part of that next crew coming through.
Any flags on the way through? Any career highlights?
Unfortunately, the group that I went through with, we got knocked out a few times in the semis and lost a couple of grannies. The group below us, who Gaz played a lot against, which was Ben Neagle, my brother obviously, and a few of the other boys, Timmy Sheehan, Brad Sheehan, Rabbi, sorry if I forget a few.
Peter Dixon around that.
Dicko was in. Yep. Very, very good side. They won a shitload of flags coming through juniors. Real success.
So top scorer as a junior?
I think 74.
Not bad.
I think. Never turned up.
Sorry, vague enough. Yeah, I like that.
We're not talking to barrel.
You haven't got a spreadsheet at home?
No spreadsheet at home. So, never got the ton during the juniors or the senior years, but it was a lot of fun.
Just to contextualise that, our great friend Josh Exley, the current VP, and the man who thinks of himself as the current Steve Garret, has a spreadsheet with all his first 11 stats at home, his own homemade Excel spreadsheet. Gaz, I know you don't have a spreadsheet, but how did you start off your junior career and end up at South?
Played my junior cricket at Parkwood, now known as Warrenwood, and then moved from there and went and tried out at Richmond when I was 17 and played about 18 months worth of cricket there until I ended up with a stress fracture in my back and stopped playing cricket for probably about the same time, 18 months. And then Barry Williams was the current president at South Warrandyte and asked me to come over and actually fill in a game for South Warrandyte in the ones against Eastfield in 2001, I think the season was. It was the worst game of cricket I've ever played in my life. Cheryl turned the page on the scorecard, and Eastfield made 526 or something like that. And it was a shocking game, but I think it may have even been the last game of the year. And then following that was when Brash came back to the club, and I knew Ben played a lot of junior cricket against Ben, and then Jezza, obviously being his brother, and a few other guys, and having Barry here has obviously dragged me to the club, and then that was it. We went upwards from there. So.
And for those that don't know, your relation to Barry is
Uncle Barry.
Uncle Barry, lovely. That's it's always the good family men and the family connections and the friendship connections that get people to local cricket clubs. So, the Great Williams family, obviously, a huge part of that legacy. Since you touched on it, I want to talk about your injury problems, because obviously you're a pretty good junior, both footy and cricket player. What happened in that year? People were talking about you getting drafted and things like that. Was it the stress factor that ended all that and that made you choose cricket, or did you choose before that?
I had a passion for cricket, and Dad was obviously a big influence in my cricket career. Followed me, I think he's still followed me to just about every game I've ever played. And his passion for the game and following him around, him playing senior cricket at Wonga Park, probably made the decision easy for me to want to play cricket more than the football. I still loved my footy, but cricket was probably a little bit more passion. And in hindsight, probably back in those days, there was probably less emphasis on stretching and body and that sort of stuff, and technique and those sort of things.
Things that you really take to heart, right? And the poster boy and the pin-up boy, stretching.
I'd like to jump in there and just say Cole, that's Steve's dad, he was a cult figure, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
He was so well known around the local area, and just coming down to our games and some of the stuff that he used to rant out and all the rest of it, it was just amazing. So
he was a good fella to have around.
Cole, yeah,
he was a good fella to hang around, and as I said, he was a big influence in me wanting to play cricket. And going back to maybe why I had some injuries was I was playing a lot of cricket. Sort of only started when I was 13 playing cricket, but it was full on from there. So it was, I think I was playing first 11 cricket at Parkwood when I was 15, and it was 2-3 training sessions a week, 3 games a week, net cricket in between, garage cricket, on the weekends in between that and after school. And I think it was probably just the volume, and and I'd probably put that down to, I'm sure Brashy could attest to that. That's, his elbow, and Nanga's same thing with injury, and Jezza's same thing back. It was just what you did. So a lot different now. So I'd suggest it was probably, come down to the workload, and probably a fair bit of technique was just out the door. So
you'd bowl your 10 overs in the morning, then go bowl 25-30 in the afternoon, basically. Right. So
I think having some fast twitch fibres to get injured probably helps.
I often fantasise about doing a stress fracture.
So you don't have to play. That's right.
The only issue is probably rocking up in the wrong shoes and falling over.
How did you choose between AFL and
Well, under 12s, I couldn't quite run a full lap before, so I made the decision quite tough.
Yeah, lovely. Before South became obviously a bit of a powerhouse in the league, we were probably not known up at the top league. Some of the Chandler clubs probably never heard of us. That would be fair to say. And obviously being in a niche spot, I think we classify ourselves as a boutique club now, is a nice way to say it. But we're not on a main road, and we're not even a real suburb. So it is more about community here, and we were a bit lower down the grades. What did you think of the culture when you came here, the history, and the group around? How did you perceive it, and how did you go about trying to raise the standards?
Well, I don't know about Jez, but I reckon that was part of the journey that was such a good era of cricket for us, was that we were coming literally from the ashes, and we built the club around community, mates, and good cricket, and we attracted people the same way. We weren't paying the big dollars, we weren't doing any of that sort of stuff back in those days. I'm pretty sure we signed Damo and his brother for a hat and a pair of shorts, and a promise of a really good time. And I know that's funny now, but if you look at it now, most reasonable players want 10 plus grand to just come and play, and half of them are fair at best. So the best part of what we did was we did it out of the ashes, and it was a bloody good time. So
we didn't have what you see around you now either. Like the original change rooms back in the early 2000s. it was just a shed with a few seats out the front, but geez, we had some fun, didn't we?
Yeah,
And
it was great.
Just that culture that we built. It was really special those first few years, and a lot of that has to go down to Baz and Pete Riley and Pete Deb, Brash. Brash got all the boys back together, and that young crew back in the early 2000s. He just out of nowhere put it together, and obviously Gaz had been down the year before, and it was amazing. It was a good time. Best 10 years of our life, I'm sure. You can probably
100%.
say, so.
And it was a good
very
mix of
special.
old and new, wasn't it? It was a lot of the older players stuck around, and they were the stalwarts of the club in a club that was effectively playing on a cow paddock, and the rooms were shit. And then all of a sudden, you had all these new players coming in, this all new culture, but everyone got along. Everyone, guys moved down grades to allow these other guys to come through, it just worked. It was that's what it was built on.
So a bit of talk about Brash here, and he was obviously a massive figure when you guys first joined. Who was better? Who was quicker? Yourself or him, Jez?
So as a young bloke first coming down the club in the early 90s, Brash was here. I don't know how old he was. Sorry, Brash, if I do injustice here. Maybe early 20s. And he was quick. He was aggressive. I idolised him as a young bloke, watching him play ones as Dad was coaching here. So in my mind, from a 13-year-old looking at it, he was the quickest I've ever seen. He was just brutal. Gaz, obviously, as he got a bit older and into those middle 2000 years, was pretty sharp. But I've got to say it was probably Brash.
Yeah, I never got to see him with a straight arm, but apparently he was quite quick. And I love, for me, being at the club, being a fast bowler that sort of bats very similar to Brash. It was awesome to see him at his best, and he was that good. And he proved it in big moments, and some of the scorecards I'm sure everyone's seen of what he did in the final series.
Well, he's definitely alerted us.
I'm sure he's let everyone
And if he was
know,
here, he'd be bloody talking about it flat out, which would be great. So you should be here, you dickhead.
They're paying $100 to each of us.
But yeah, he's an absolute superstar. But so obviously the man next to me was amazing to play with and be around. And I was probably one of the luckiest blokes to be the shittest cricketer in 3 premiership sides. Just the right time, right place. And because of blokes like Gaz and obviously Brash, playing with these fellas, it was amazing to watch and be part of. So.
Now, one thing I do want to fact check here is Brash, when he talks about coming back and the sort of the journey to get you guys from a pretty nothing club to where it became, he mentions that you were a shit leg spinner. Is this true? And I'm looking.
I know where he read it. Where he read that from. It might have been my brother, but no. Not one of the things I've ever put in my repertoire as being a spinner. I definitely talked to my son out of being a spinner. He decided that he might have decided he wanted to do it, and I said no fucking way. So no spinning on my side of things. So, but back to Brash, like he was the cult figure for our team. Along with Barry and then Bobby Neagle coming on a little bit later on, but without those cult figures around you that everyone looks up to, and I was 20 I think when I came to the club, he was definitely someone I looked up to, and there was guys that didn't play cricket like Barry and Pete Riley and Pete Debenham. They did so much for the club that when me and Jez and the guys went out in the early days and Rabs and Shugs and Cam Bolt and that sort of stuff, we were playing for each other and we were playing for the guys that were off the field as well. So, help build a really strong club.
And how would you have gone at district cricket? Because you obviously took that journey a bit later in life.
And he has told us that he would have gone pretty well a few times. So we're just thinking
the only reason I went was, I wanted a new challenge, and then I took over from Bobby and that as captain coach here, and there was an opportunity to go when sort of the Big Bash was coming out, and had a pretty good mate in Jared Loffman who played at the club, who sort of said, well, good opportunity to come down and bowl fast and whack balls. And I thought, sounds like a good plan to me. So that's pretty much why I went back, to have a crack and try something new and learn something different, which was fantastic. And, I definitely wouldn't change going back for quits either. So.
Yeah, lovely. Well, let's get on to the first flag, the Newey Plate Premiership. We've got a plate here in front of us with the team photo, and we've got a very, very young-looking Gaz. Looks a bit like Joe Root or maybe Ellen DeGeneres or any other sorts of. You can insert your own lookalike there. Very young, and a few blokes that you wouldn't recognise so well. Yeah,
Sugar hasn't changed.
Yeah, Sugar's still looking very suave there. There's Skull's not in that one, but I saw a photo of Skull in the following year, and I could not believe the size of him, as in the lack of size. He always told us he could run 110 seconds, and we've never believed it because we haven't seen him move that fast to the barbecue. But yeah, it's a great photo. Can you talk us through the start of the year, how you guys went, and how you were feeling going into finals?
To be honest, I think it was the easiest year of cricket I've ever played.
Agreed.
I say that hopefully a little bit humbly for the other teams, but we were that good, and the team was that good. It literally it picked up anywhere you wanted, and it didn't matter whether it was your opening bats or your number 10 or 11 bat. Someone always made runs, and then we had the confidence to go out and bowl teams out. Like, we finished so many games before tea. We got outrights. Like, it was the easiest year of cricket we played.
Won the grand final an hour and a half after the tea break on the first day.
We came back to watch another club play the grand final. It was ridiculous cricket, and Brash had a monster year that year, and Kurdish Muda, like he was phenomenal as well. Everyone in the team was
Dean
just
Joyce was part of there,
Davey Joyce. What do you got? So yeah, Barry Williams. So president at the time was Pete Riley, and Barry Williams was the vice president. And I had myself, Cam Bolt, David Joyce, Scott Brasher, who was the captain, Nick Barrett, Kane Hartrop, Dave Garner, Brad Greer, who else we got in here? Benny Garner, Brett Caridi, Jezza, and Benny Neagle. So it was a fair old side for Newey cricket back in those days.
And so were you top sort of the whole year, or was it
Didn't
like
lose a
sort
game.
of...
Didn't lose a game.
Didn't lose a game.
Wow.
And yeah, won the flag, as Jez said.
And was
just
that
after
your
tea.
first year as a group together?
Yep.
Like, never played cricket as a group together.
So I think Tuggy was the captain the year before, and that's the first year. Brash, how many new players?
But out of that side, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys that played juniors through.
Yeah, and then just bang,
And then all
senior
came back
cricket
together.
at the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
So it was great.
Then the granny, who did you play?
North United Lions, wasn't it?
Oh, I
Was
don't
it
know.
them?
It did make a difference. We were
Harry, have a go. Harry, have a go.
there for an hour.
I think Brash took 8 for or something. Got the name.
And made 70 or something. Like, it was
hilarious.
ridiculous cricket. It was literally, that's probably embarrassing because I honestly don't remember who was playing. All I remember was it was the quickest game of cricket we played all year. And yeah, it was phenomenal.
Jar of lemonade and said, next year, we will never see you again.
Pretty much.
How did it feel after, obviously you had, talking about the injuries you had and you'd have a couple of years off and that, how did it feel to be able to get back on the park with your mates and come straight into a premiership winning side?
They'll go down as the best years of cricket, that I played, which was, and to be honest, it wasn't just that game or that year. The whole time I personally spent at South Warrandyte playing with the group that I spent playing with was, that most of the cricket, probably plays second fiddle to the memories that I've created of moments in games or moments probably after the games more so, or in between. But those early years are phenomenal cricket years because we had so many good players, and going Newey, Wilkins, and then a few years later going Chandler was phenomenal.
So Newey sort of got the ball rolling, and then obviously straight up into Wilkins. How did you go that year?
I think we lost the first 3 games in Wilkins, and started sort of looking around to each other going, "Ooh, we're up here, righto."
I think we were still pissed from the
Might have been. And but then I think we just dug in, and the side had changed a little bit, obviously. There's a couple of guys that had gone out, left the club. Some new guys had come in.
So was that Skull's first year? He comes in.
that's a
How
Skull's
did he go?
Had a ripping year.
He's let us know.
Had a ripping year, and honestly, like some of that one knock at St Andrews that year that he made 70 or something, and which
Made
was
700 runs.
Yeah,
That's what
he had a cracking year, absolutely massive year. So, but again, it was a tough start, but we sort of came together and started working through it and found our feet, and yeah,
We had new players. Springett's, came through, and we had new players, so we're just finding each other's feet. And yeah, sitting back and watching Skull, like, as much as he probably told you guys, he was fucking phenomenal. Like he was that good. Again, playing in a team the year before with Newey, having guys that just do the job. Once we found our feet, like you could just about rely on Skull every game to get his 50, 60, 70 to 100, whatever it was. So yeah, he was a big part of that team. And
that's when that rivalry started, sort of with Croydon North
Croydon
as well.
North,
That they were a ripping side. They were probably the best side that year. I think we got them once. They got us once during the year.
Yep.
And they beat us in the semi. And then we met them in the grand final that year and rolled them. And that probably goes down as the best rivalry.
Best
we
one.
had.
Yeah.
So was it three final series then? So 3 weeks.
1 versus 2, 3 versus 4. Yep.
And so was it win-win, or how'd you go?
Lost, win.
Yeah,
Lovely.
lost the first semi and then won preliminary.
Two Croydon North.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's a great turnaround. And I heard before we get into the details of the grand final, they might have come round after. Was that year? Later at night?
Was that year? It may have been 3 a.m.-ish. After we'd won it, everyone was blind out the back. We may have just lit a couch on fire. And then a bloody car just came screaming down the driveway with a massive handbrakey, and 5 Croydon North blokes piled out of the car and just joined in. It was
We replayed.
epic.
We replayed every wicket from the day, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's good. That's the rivalries you want.
And did you sing the song back in the day, or is that sort of
100%.
yeah? And was that a sort of weekly thing? You'd sing the song, or that was grand final?
Yeah,
finals?
I think it was only grand final.
Finals,
Yeah,
maybe.
finals. I think
Yeah.
we sang it, and then the only other time I've heard it so many times is on one of our cricket trips where Zep sung it every stubby he had. I think we're going to Albury. Just a quick story for you. I think we're going to Albury or somewhere like that. Chris Springett's driving the bus. We pile in here on the Friday afternoon or whatever it was, and after every stubby, Zep would sing the song, and I think he drank 23 stubbies on the way up, and then it's on the way up we had to stop because he spewed down the side of the bus. It stayed there for the whole cricket trip, baked to the side of the bus. So yeah, I've never heard the song as many times as I heard it that day. So.
Is this the same trip that one of the Neagles, I think, may have reminded Zep that he made all his runs in B grade? It turned into a bit of a dispute.
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Or was that just a regular weekly
It
conversation?
might have been 3 or 4 trips. I'm not sure.
I remember he threw a vacuum at me one day when I was having a piss at the club, and we fired him up for something, and he fell in a fire another night. And
We've all had some ripping nights up, you know. But that A grade year, the Wilkins Cup year, was the year that Mara actually got the nod to play in the grand final side, which was huge. And probably hurt Zep a bit because they were both sort of going for the same spot, and Mara got the nod over Zep, and they'd both been at the club for years and years and years and played so much cricket, and it was just heartbreaking to watch one of them miss out. But
it's Brash's decision, so.
Yeah, all pressure.
Just while we were weighing it on Zep, I better pump him up a little bit because he's still doing some electrical work for us. AD,
For your electrical needs.
AD did tell us that Zep might have been the best fielder he ever saw at South Warrandyte. Can you confirm or deny this and put up some other nominations for best fielders that you saw in that era?
He just had the biggest hands. he had the biggest bucket hands. Nang back in his day was Nang was pretty agile. I didn't get to see much of Darren Johnson in his prime years, but he did have a good set of hands, Zep, because he's got bucket hands. So leave that there.
So that's back to back. You've gone Newey straight up one, Wilkins, and then it's into Chandler.
Into Chandler. I think the semi-final, we just touch on with Brash as well. I think he took 8 for 14 in the semi that year, which is an absolutely phenomenal effort. And he's told me that so many times I couldn't possibly let it slide. he also, I think, he made 50 to win the game.
He stood up in the big games, Brash. You give him that. He was always the one that wanted the 3 votes on grand final day, to be honest. So.
Yeah, and I think he still does. So 8th of 14 at a final, that's about as good as it gets. I reckon that's certainly earning your dollars. And I know we could only afford to pay Damo a pair of shorts, and the main thing I got out of that was that we were paying Gaz so much that we couldn't afford Damo, and I think we were paying Brash so much before that we couldn't afford
it's his
to pay
same
Gaz.
contract now, isn't it, for Damo? Pair of shorts and a hat.
Yeah, that's Solo's fault again. So. Sorry, moving on to the Chandler season. Obviously, we didn't win the premiership straight away. It's 06, 07, 3 or 4 years. What happened in those intervening years? How was the build-up towards the premiership? Why didn't it get done earlier? If you can ask that question. What happened in those intervening years before we got it done?
We found out we're just finding our feet in Channel. Like, again, coming from such a small club and not having a lot of notice, we were still struggling to find, those 1 or 2 extra players, because there was a step up, especially back in those days. There was a big step up from the Wilkins to the Chandler clubs, and the big Chandler clubs were, Ainsley Parks and Croydon North and those sort of guys who had been there for a long time. Obviously, Croydon North weren't there at that stage, but yeah, there was some still pretty big names getting around in the Chandler Shield, and unfortunately, we hadn't attracted too many people apart from the guys that had already come. But we competed still well.
I can't remember where we finished. I know one of those
years
we got knocked out
in the finals, but always finished mid to the upper tier of those years. And probably the difference for the year that we won it was we had that injection of a couple of new players and probably balanced out the side.
And who were those players?
New players that came in, the Vozos, or Michael Vozo, Chad. Chad,
who we weren't going to mention tonight, but we
got to mention Chad. I think it was. I think Barrel probably matured very. Minor
I'm still waiting.
I'm not sure he's
for him
actually
to
matured
mature.
any further. It was probably his most mature year of his life back then. But probably 1 to 2 mention is Chrissy Jones. Chrissy Jones played a big part in the Wilkins year. Missed out on playing in the flag, but had big seasons leading up to that. Played a lot of ones cricket, and another stalwart of the club who's been there for a very long time. So he obviously went all the way through the Chandler one as well with us.
Didn't miss out in the celebrations though.
No, never did. Never did.
Do you think there was a difference in the culture that year? Was there a bit more intensity at training or anything that you could pick besides the addition of those couple of players that made the difference?
Probably not. I reckon we always trained pretty hard.
Yeah, we did train pretty hard. It was always a good turnout. Like, seeing you guys tonight at training for 20 guys at training on a Tuesday. That was pretty much our Thursday, but we only had small numbers. We probably only had 3 or 4 sides, but yeah, we always had good numbers at training, and turnout was good, and we trained hard. So I don't think there was too much that we did apart from probably find our feet in the Chandler years.
Just brought in a couple of extra experienced players, and that just made that top-up difference. And I think proof's in the pudding with the, what happened in the grand final and so forth. A couple of guys that got most runs, and they were guys that were new to the club, and made that difference. So Chad was pretty big that year as well with the ball.
Massive.
Gaz obviously had a pretty good year, and everyone else chipped in around him. So
was going into this year, was this your first year as captain?
Yep.
Looking at Gaz.
Yep. This was my first year as captain.
So let's go through the Brash story then. What happened with Brash the year before? Because I believe he was captain. How did that come about?
We had a vote as a club, and they voted him out. So tribal council, and I think, to be honest, his family was obviously at a point where he was not able to put in probably the extra bit of time, and he was ready to move on. And obviously, having such success early days, he was ready, and the club. I think put it to me whether or not it'd be something I'd be interested in with the backing of Brash, and that was sort of how it all happened. So he probably handed it to me more than me taking it off him. So
and was there any consideration of him continuing playing that year but not as captain, or was that just not?
After I took over, there was no fucking chance. So
he made the call. He made the call. So he'd had enough, and We'd got close the year before. I think Wonga knocked us out.
They did, yeah.
In the second last week, and that was a tough year. I remember that really well. Just we'd got close again. It was like, shit, can we get there? Okay, we didn't. We missed out. And I think that might have played on Brush a little bit, and he just went, we've had a good run. I don't know how old he was, but his body was pretty screwed, and but I'm pretty sure.
Had a arm that's shaped like Maruli, if I remember correctly at that point.
It was definitely based around his decision to stop doing what he was doing, and as I said, his success prior to that year was phenomenal. So it was just unlucky that he missed out on it.
So then 2006-7, this is obviously the season where South Warrandyte wins their first ever Chandler series. Did you want to go us through with some stats this year, Troy?
Well,
I'm sure you've done your detailed analysis.
No, you'd think so, but no, there's one main stat that we keep hearing about every bloody week, and that is 110. He actually just bought some balls for the reverse raffle draw on Saturday. He bought 110. He tells us every time someone makes 105, it's not 110. Damien Vozzo's 110 average in the Chandler Finals series. First, is this actually true? Second, please tell us it's not true. And third, tell us a bit about Damo the player and the impact he had on the group that season.
Oh, look, yes, it is true. He did average 110. He had a bloody good year that year, especially in the final series. In regards to the effect he had on the group, he was Michael and Damien, obviously brothers. Michael was a bit more serious. He was an AFL umpire at the time, say no more. But he was very serious, very hard on the field, demanded a lot, which was great for the group. And Damien was similar in ways, but would have a bit more of a joke and a laugh and a muck around. So, nicknamed Hot Dogs and Damo Dogs. And, he was that comedy relief around the group, that year. So, he might talk it up a little bit and have a bit of a joke about it, but he was massive for us. And he's been big for the club ever since as well. Like, did leave and he's come back after a few years, and now he's coached the club for the last fourth year, so...
He also dropped the catch that got us relegated, so he's had a huge impact on the club.
There's been some ups and downs for him over the journey. But, that all stems back from them coming that year and feeling such a part of it. And, he obviously fell in love with the club, playing with us then, and, really wanted to come back and put in a big effort, coaching you boys now.
Yeah, and how did he get to the club? What was the contact there?
Shane Hansen.
Cousin.
Yep.
Lovely. And batting, was he just a glorious, he told us about his cover drive. Is that true? Was he a flying batsman, or was he more of a dig-in sort of guy?
I'm not sure you put him as either of those two options.
Dabber?
He's a bit of a dabber. I think it's a little bit flaying. He definitely just worked at it. There was he never went off to a flashing start. But, he had a couple of tough years as well. But one thing that you learn about different cricketers is, what happens, when they're not going well, and what happens when the chips are down a little bit. And he always still, held himself in pretty good character around the boys. And I think that, a bit of a larrikin side of things complemented that team at that time as well, that it wasn't just about the cricket, and it was, you didn't have to take yourself too seriously, and sometimes you just get a bit out of luck. And he had a year where he made about 2 bits of fuck all, and he finally got going against Wonga Park, and he got to about 15, which is probably the highest score he had for the year. And then got caught down leg side, whipping one away down leg side. So when it's not your year, it's not your year. But the way he went about carrying himself in the field and off the field is, something that you learn. And same with Michael. Michael was, very process driven, and he was probably a little bit flashier. Again, you learn something from him, and take something from everyone. But Damo was another big part of that. And obviously, the best part I like to see is that in that Chandler team, looking at it now, there's not one player that's still playing here, but he's come back because he loves the club so much, and he's come back to be around, another new group of guys, and that speaks volumes for him. So
he certainly had a huge impact the last few years. I know when he came down, we had 3 and a bit teams and 8 blokes on a Thursday night, and now
one on a Tuesday.
And he certainly turned things around here. But it sounds to me like you're saying, Dabba, not much talent. We these days call that cunting around. It's a term coined by Sean McMahon. So it sounds like that's what you were doing, Damo. I know you were getting a little bit, your ego was getting stroked there, so I just had to bring it back down a little bit. The grand final, I believe, Croydon North was the game.
Yeah, Croydon North again.
So we went out to bat first. Did we win the toss?
We did.
Lovely.
One and only time I decided to bat first, I'll give you the tip.
Jeez, that's a big one.
Which is very controversial in today's day and age. We remove captains who choose to bowl first.
So we've got Brett Caridi opened the batting, made 11. Nick Barrett opened the batting with him before Josh made a blob on the back of a 96 or 98 in the semi, I believe.
Yep, correct. It's always a highlight in the grand final.
Yeah, we've reminded him about that over the years. Skull 16, Damien Vozzo 42 to top off his average. Michael Vozzo, very strong batting lineup there, coming in at 6, made 80, was the backbone of that innings. Steve Garret 28, and then the tail not too much, so 9 for 236 we made off our 80 overs. Which ground was this at, boys?
In South Croydon.
Silcock?
Silcock.
Was the grand final? Oh, yeah, sorry. South Croydon was...
Right, a lot of lemonades that day. It was a great day.
How old were you, Sean? 14.
22.
So that's a very good score at a final. Really, it's probably hard to chase with that red ball and with our bowling lineup. They had not made a bad attempt. Didn't lose a wicket for the first 59. Was there any pressure coming on then? Did you think maybe you made the wrong call at the toss, Gaz?
Should have bowled.
Been over by lunch.
It was all about Chad Rogers with the ball. 6 for 37 off 20 overs. Gaz just playing a sort of second fiddle up the hill into the wind roll.
I'd have a look at the Chad Rogers, and there's a fairly big counterpart to Chad's wickets, and probably hasn't had a mention yet, but Aldo's probably one of the best keepers that's gone around South Warrandyte. Davey Horwood is the other one who we had as well here, but that Chandler year, or when Aldo came to the club, he's obviously an interesting character, but he was massive that year. Not real massive with the bat, but I'm pretty sure I watched him give himself out LBW and walk off the ground before the umpire put his finger up. But attributed to many a wicket, especially with Chad.
So up to the stumps,
up to
quick
the stumps, quick,
A lot of
red
pressure.
side, whip the bails off. So just sort of give you a run, Aldo.
Yeah, well, he made 16 not out as well, so good day for him. And there was a run out by Michael Vozzo and 2 wickets for Gaz. We've knocked over them for 172. Probably never really in doubt after the first couple of wickets. And tell us about after the game, boys, the first reactions, the celebrations. What did you get up to that night?
So everyone always remembers the first moment. What happened when the final wicket happened from your perspective? Who did you run to?
I can't even remember, but everyone just got around each other and screamed and carried on like pork chops. And I actually remember Baz running out and Brash. And then it was just mayhem. So remember the photo getting taken that we're all looking at here on the shield. Then just plenty of beers and celebrations after that.
A quick, massive flashback, but the Wilkins year when we were playing at South Croydon, the last wicket of the game was a nick to first slip that Rabbit's taken over his head and he just took off to the boundary and literally watched the other 10 players chase him all the way around the boundary, and half the crowd were on the ground chasing Rabbit around the boundary.
He just wouldn't stop.
He just wouldn't stop. With the ball in his hand, just took off, and just a flashback for what happened at the end of the game. But the Chandler.
The Energizer Bunny in my mind.
Milne Dog was out there.
Yeah.
It was good.
Can I just ask about some of those role plays in that year? Because obviously not everyone is the big gun, and pretty much every club, I think, has a couple of stars that they're either paying quid to or have come up through the juniors that you Steve Garrett types. But not everyone has the depth in the role players, and I don't want to point Rab out, but I remember watching him as a young one. I never thought, gee, that's a Chandler Premiership player. But the blokes like that. Can you tell us about their roles in the team, how important they were, and the impact they had on the group culturally, motivationally, and all that sort of stuff as well? And Jez is probably...
I'll be like
Jez is probably the leader of that group. How did they impact the team, and what was the difference in those years compared to previous years of those role players?
Maybe you speak to everyone else and you speak to Jez.
I just think those 4 or 5 players, you're going to have 3 to 5 really good cricketers in every side, but the back end talent kind of makes the rest of the side up. You know what I mean? It really does. And we were very lucky. You know, guys like Rabbi, myself, Benny Garner. I don't want to put anyone else in it. You know, Jonesy was in and out there. The last 3 or 4 guys, and it could have been any of us in and out any given week. That Chandler year, I was probably close to going, and I took 5 for the week before against Templeton, and Gaz couldn't drop me, you know what I mean? Fuck you, mate, you can't drop me now, you know? So,
You're one of your best mates, you're never going anywhere. I was the captain. We spoke about this during the week.
Yeah, but I think our last 3 players was better than every other side's last 3 players, basically.
You think that was it talent, or was it just the intensity and desire that those bottom 3 or 4 had?
It was a belief as well.
Yeah.
The rest of the team believed in everyone else. That's how you win a flag. You bottom 3 or 4 players. You don't win them with your 6 or 7 like you
They
just
help,
don't.
worry. 70 or 80 and 6 bar, you know. Yeah.
Obviously, there's 3 or 4 that, you know.
Brush is scoffing at home.
He's bullshit. Those guys make up the team that win you the flag, because 9 times out of 10, you know, apart from Brash, sometimes your big players don't stand up in those moments, and it's the grit and determination of others. And Jezza's won us more games than I can remember during the year to get us to these final series, just when you need 15 runs at the end of the game. That's it. It's only 15, but, you know, you can grit and grind. And, you know, Chris Jones going out to face, you know, a quick opening bowler and just nuggeting out, you know, 10 overs before, you know, someone else gets to do the job. So I think it's not a role that's, you know, definitely unforeseen from everyone else. That's highly seen, I think. And as I said, that's how you win your flag. So.
How did you mentally, Jez, deal with the role of, you know, in the grand final you were batting at 10, you were the 6th bowler. It's a lot of blokes don't really want that role in cricket. They want to come on this Saturday and not bat and maybe bowl a couple of overs. It's or, you know, they watch Test cricket and think number 9's a bowler's spot or whatever. But in club cricket, it's obviously very different. How did you approach that mentally, and what was your motivations behind still sticking around when there obviously would have been, you know, 4-6 week periods where you might not have done much on the Saturday?
I just wanted to be part of it, you know, simple as that. Play with your mates, see the success, be there for it. And, you know, we started it, you know, 6 or 7 years earlier, and I was determined to see it through. My body had let me down the year before, or a couple of years before. I actually played the Wilkins Grand Final with the torn ACL. So had to drive around the Saturday morning before that Grand Final and get jabbed up, and it took me about 6 or 7 doctors to find the right guy.
Did you bowl that day?
No, I didn't bowl. So the boys carried me through that one big time, more so than the others.
And whose spot did you take with the torn ACL?
Look, to be honest, Chris Jones probably would have got a game. If I hadn't have got jabbed, he probably would have got a game. But
His elbows and knees were just as bad as yours.
yeah, they were. But that's what, you know, you just want to be part of it, and it's not about bowling 30 overs and, you know, the stuff that you do out in the field and the shit you give the opposition. My role was to be hated by the opposition, you know. I took that upon myself, and I was probably the most hated man in the RCA there at one point.
First picked.
So question, how would Bobby have taken if you said, look, Dad, I just want to drop back to the 2s and score some runs and get a ball?
Probably give you a backhand. Pull your head in, son. Simple as that.
Now, I was a bit lost in where in the run sheet, and Troy's just said, look, right, throw across to the post-flag era. So how did we go after winning the Chandler flag, as it was? We were still up and around there. Did we get close again?
I reckon we finished top 4 the following year, or just dropped out. My memory could be wrong there. So, but I don't think we sort of finished middle sort of tier.
The 10-team comp back then as well, a bit different.
Was 10,
and top 4
correct.
finals.
4 finals.
Yeah, hard to get into.
Hard to get into, and still around pretty strong Chandler clubs again. And then we started dropping off with a few guys.
We did play off another year though, when the third Vozo brother was
Scotty came across.
Came along. Yeah.
So I can't remember whether it was a year after the flag or the one following that.
Yeah,
so 2008 or something like that. To be part of 3 flags, you know.
And then the boys obviously, I wasn't part of this one, but the boys lost one to Moorabah. I can't remember what year that was. either.
2011, 2012.
Yeah, so they had a chance.
All
to
I'm
win
hearing
another one.
is the difference.
Yeah, look, I wasn't there, I think I might have played the twos with you that year.
So yeah, I suppose so that's the journey to being the great South Warrandyte trilogy. Any big moments that stand out from you in the times afterward? Big scores, things that need to be brought up on.
Just different. We had different people come around the club. We had just, I know we weren't winning flags, but we had some really good people still around. Bobby Neagle, obviously, coached the club through a period there as well, which was, phenomenal to have someone that had coached earlier and had junior boys playing, and then to come back and coach the club, and then guys take over different roles, on and off the field. And so it wasn't all about the flags. It was just about a great, era of cricket, 10, 15 years plus of cricket. So,
And there's a lot of people we haven't spoken about.
Yeah,
you
heaps
feel
of-
terrible not mentioning everyone, but people like Julie Mallorik, and she was a big part of the juniors when we all first came through, and just so many. Keezy Bolt, he was always here. Chrissy Willman, all these older guys. Gris, everyone. Brucey Templeton, who are just massive parts of the club. If there's anyone I've forgotten, I'm so sorry.
there's
but
under them, players
so
all the way down.
Cheryl, our scorer for many, many years.
Still, Williams,
Yeah,
a shout out.
yeah, Cheryl still here. I saw Cheryl just Saturday gone, or the one before, still scoring for the boys, and she's just a ripper. So
Nearly every year, literally before the first game, someone would say, "Gaz, have you called Cheryl yet?"
It's still not a tradition. It's a South Warrandyte tradition. Shit.
Is that my job as well? Right, okay, yeah, cool. No
and
worries.
Cheryl would know, honestly, by about round 2 or 3, she'd just you'd be having a chat to her or whatever, and she'd just go, "Good side this year, Jezza." I know Cheryl.
As she'd hand you a duck quacking as you walk off the ground, just to remind you. But some of the cricket that we played was like, as I said, like
That new year, the boys just did what they wanted, but we played in multiple outrights, and that doesn't exist in cricket. And then we played in a reverse outright. It was
So that was the next point we had on
seriously,
the question.
that was just the. And to be honest, we went back out.
Pretty sure you had a pretty good day that day, didn't you?
the only reason
He went enough to bring it back, and we're standing.
the only reason I do remember, I said to the boys after the game, if that's what we're going to fucking dish up, you can go back out and finish the game.
And that's what we did. We were going out there as punishment, and next minute, oh, sure, it was a fucking
It was a Churnside, wasn't it?
No, it was in South Korea.
I can't remember, to be honest.
Is it true that the opposition went to shake your hands and you said, "Where do you think you go?"
Fucking
we literally, they were coming off the ground, and it was more to our team. I said, if that's what we're going to fucking dish up, we can go back and finish the game. They were ready to pull stumps,
And then what happened? They went out to bat. So maybe were you there, Jez?
I was there.
Do you want to talk us through?
Oh, I can't remember exact details.
I've got the figures here.
8 for 6.
There you go.
It was just another, surreal cricket game. Like there's so many cricket games I just don't remember, ins and outs of it when you're playing stuff like that. That's the stuff that's
The games are made of, or turning up thinking that you were going to get washed out, so having a few extra frothies on a Friday night, or picking Garner up, still sitting in a chair with half a Jack can in his hand, asleep while Jez is on the couch next to him.
Punching on with the opposition before you're playing on the Saturday.
Those sort of things are the things that you remember.
So 8 for 6, they were your best ever figures.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it was Sweens that asked me at the bar after the game, are they my best figures? And I think I said to him, no, I got 7 for 2 one day, Sweens. So yeah, no, it was obviously a good day. As Troy would know.
And
Obviously,
then
that's the
I'm
lead.
the one in charge of asking you silly questions, because it says, make sure you segue into getting a call from Troy at, when was it, on the Sunday? Well, you won't remember. When do you...
No, I remember because I assume you were still going, but I'd had a big night the night before and wasn't that keen on talking to anyone. And when I saw it come up on my phone, I'm not sure what you want there, and then listen to the message. And then,
But my first initial reaction was I was actually impressed, and then it grew from there to being very unimpressed.
We may have fed that a little bit.
And I'm not sure whether I was unimpressed because of Troy or the 30 other blokes or 50 other blokes that may have carried it on from there. So, it was it was great.
So just to clarify, your best ever figures?
That's 9.
9.
In what grade?
It
Sorry,
doesn't
I
say,
think we're
doesn't
breaking
say
up.
next to the figures that it's the lowest grade that adults could possibly play in the world. It doesn't say that. It just says.
Was it the trivia night that you had the signed shirt?
Yeah. So Biggsy wanted to put a signed shirt of mine framed up next to his premiership one as a bit of a joke, and your mate.
No, someone sent it to me.
Smith Dog decided.
Smith Dog.
Smith Dog thought it would be great if he bought it on your company card.
That's right.
And bidded Biggsy for about $600 for my signed shirt. So that was a good day for the club.
Great day for the club.
Not sure what happened to the shirt, but we'll leave that for another podcast.
It never made it to me. I'm pretty sure I said to Smitty, don't fucking bring that here.
There is some good footage of that.
Well, moving on to your time at Richmond then. Gaz, you left the club in, I think it was 12-13 season, so the club was going in all right shape when you left, but you had a pretty good season. You've taken 20 wickets, and you're up in the bowling, I think, with Alan Wise for the season, was that right?
I bowled first change. I think Will Sheridan was in the team in my first year, so him and Wisey, I think, opened the bowling, who's our Wise, phenomenal.
Played a lot of Shield cricket.
Yeah, played a lot of Shield cricket, and just made me realise maybe how far out of my depth I was when I was watching Shero and Wisey play cricket. But I just went there and did the same thing that I did here and tried to bowl fast and tried to whack balls, and somehow paid off. So
Lovely. And you took us through your last game, going into it. You'd already made the decision to retire from Premier
it was
cricket.
the worst decision made. I told all the boys at the start of the game, and Wisey knew I was going to say something, and I, stood up, and we all circled up and said, Gaz has got something he wants to say, and going to call it quits, and I only went for the time that I decided to have a crack, and I had a pretty bad injury on my ankle that took me nearly 10 weeks to get over before I even got back in, and my wife and I had Bo at that stage, and I decided that that was going to be my last year, and decided to tell the boys, and I think at the end of the game I was like, I'm not even going to...
So I think you took 7 for 23, and your last 3 balls were a hat-trick, is that correct?
Including a hat-trick, yeah. So
That's
another...
Not a bad day of Premier cricket. Who was your best wicket, do you reckon, in that time?
Any of them, to be honest. I didn't know half the blokes until I realised that they were Shield cricketers at the end of it. But it was more probably the experience I got to play against with some of the guys. I got to play against or with Cam White, Dan Christian, like they were in my team. Like and played against Maxi and Hodgie and these sort of guys. That was it was like a fucking kid in a candy store, and I was older than most of them, so and had kids. So I don't know, biggest scalp. I honestly didn't know them enough. One of the other things I look at now watching the Big Bash is I played in Farward Ahmed's very first game. It was his first day in Australia. He literally flew in. We were playing a country game as a practice match up in maybe Shep or somewhere like that. And he came up, and it was his first game, and literally, knew no one, just rolled straight in to play his first game of cricket, and that's something I remember. It's not even that memorable, but to play with someone like that and seeing what he's doing is, so those sort of things. So
We love those niche stories here.
Yeah.
And what are the things one, do you regret maybe not going after the Chandler Premiership year and having a crack? Do you think your body would have been up to it? And 2, what did you learn? What was the key differences, do you think?
Didn't regret when I went. I wasn't ready to go. I literally had no inclinations that I was going to leave South Warrandyte after the Chandler Premiership. We got to a point, and the club was still in good position, and I had an opportunity. And the biggest difference is the more work you put in, the better your body gets and the better results you get. So it's literally about hard work. It's literally about looking after your body,
doing the right things. You know, watching someone like Cam White, who's that good, it's because he trains that hard. You know, he literally trains that hard and throws balls after training and takes extra catches and hits more balls than anyone else. And that's
But
why
from a
he's
committee
so good.
point of view, and I was on the committee when all this went down, it was fucking terrible news.
I remember asking Jez this exact same question at a poker night on a Thursday evening. I said, "Oh, you must be happy for how Gaz has gone," and I think I got the old wanker.
I'm pretty sure the only person that said, "What are you doing? No, don't go," was Jez. Everyone else, "Oh yeah, that's great, good idea." And I told Jez, and he's like, "Why? Why are you fucking going?" I'm like, "No, don't go. Why?"
But I got him back.
No one came back.
And now this is my favourite question of the run sheet. Jez, tell us about captaining while we got relegated.
Bit of a wise cost situation there. But yeah, tell us about the relegation, why that happened, and of course Damo's famous drop catch against Croydon North. I know that 8 or 9 down with 20 to go.
Oh, look, I wasn't actually playing then. I don't know whether I'd retired or I was injured or what it was, but
There's definitely a Neagle here.
look, it was a tough year, and I believe the game was against Croydon North, of all clubs, that relegated us. And yes, there was a catch that went down, and it was close. But you know, at the end of the day, we'd been up, and we'd been up for a few years and had success. And you know, you can't. It's not sustainable forever. So the guys that played that year just, you know, did what they could. And you know, Nang was there, and I know Damo was there. I've got no idea who else was there.
Were you playing Gaz? No.
Gaz wasn't playing. Sam Beagley might have been in the side that year, you know, a few others. But
Stewie
Barrel, Stewie
Batten was
Batten, yeah.
coaching.
Yep. It was a tough year for the club, but you know, we'd been there before, and you know, you move on, and you know, you go again. So
Now, we still occasionally in the ones might come up against some old guy who just still smacks it and's been an absolute gun from his time. And this was the only time I remember South Warrandyte trotting out the old gun, and it was Scotty Brasher came in. Hadn't played cricket in about 5 years. Goes in. I believe he got a duck that day.
Yeah, so Dave McBride had made 41 the week before, and was batting that, you know, number 10, not doing much role, but he thought he was a lock to play the game to get us saved. And Paul Foley, I think, might have been the coach actually that year, and he trotted out Brash. Do you guys remember have any memories of that decision? And you know, do you think we would have won the game had Dave McBride been picked? Because we told Brash that we would have.
well, then probably we would have. Oh, look, I don't remember, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
I think, you know, one of the best parts about cricket is the highs and lows, and probably the best part about looking back over the time from you know, probably when you started coming, you know, from a very small club, no juniors, to building the back up, to getting to the point where we won flags. And then, although we've dropped down, you know, to see where the club is now with new faces, and it speaks, you know, volumes of younger guys like yourselves taking over the club, and, you know, X and that sort of stuff. And, you know, FAS, you know, someone's got to do the job, and, you know, to see it, you know, rolling back again is really, really exciting. And seeing training and young kids that were very under 12s, you know, to now in the ones and playing good cricket, that's the exciting part.
Now, and this isn't actually on the run sheet, but both of you guys are life members, if I'm right in saying. So when did you get yours?
Same year as Scotty Brash, so I couldn't tell you when it was exactly. But yeah, it was a big night, obviously, and to be inducted with Scotty was huge. As I said earlier, it's a shame he's not here tonight having this conversation. Would have been much better in the spot that I'm standing in for Scott to be here.
We're actually standing on the Jezza club rooms.
But yeah, so that was huge, you know, to get that honour was amazing. And Gaz was a few years after, yeah.
Yeah, mine was on the year that I decided to leave, so.
And if I remember, you were quite stoic up there at the Warrandyte club rooms, just blinking back a tear, or.
Oh well, you know, it felt like I'd only been here for 10 minutes, but you know, when you look back and to stand up with, you know, some of the people that are life members of this club. Like it's a pretty proud moment, and I tell people very proudly, when they ask me, oh, where'd you play your junior cricket, or where'd you play cricket last, or whatever it was, one of my first responses is, oh, well, I'm a life member at South Warrandyte. So, I still hold that in very high regard as one of probably pretty big achievement to have a life membership anywhere. So,
Amazing. And off the field, you were, I think, the social committee for a few years, Gaz. You were the
ran the social committee for a couple of years, which was a bloody good fun. As I said, it wasn't just all about the cricket, especially with Jeremy Neagle and Ben Neagle and Garner and that sort of stuff. We played pretty good cricket inside the club rooms as much as we played it outside, to be honest.
nude.
Work hard, play hard. Yeah.
And Jez, you were on the committee for a number of years in a few roles, I believe.
Yeah, a number of years in committee and VP for a couple of years here and there, and and that was after playing, and just still wanted to be involved, with the club and be around the lads, and it's just huge. So
Captain the twos as well.
skipping the twos for a year, I think, or two,
Yeah,
one. Played with Sean, and that that was great fun. Just my body let me down in the end, and couldn't keep playing. So, but it was good to go back and play some cricket with some young guys, and just try and do what you can for them for a year or two, and give a bit back.
Just before we wrap up on your actual careers, the return. We're in Wilkins. I think we got all the band back together basically, and I think there was a bit of an expectation around the group that it would just happen again, or certainly from our point of view, from the outside, that we felt that it would, and I think we missed final, might come fifth that year. What were your recollections of that year? What happened to make that not quite work as well as we hoped?
Oh, coming back to watch it, obviously Binger's given me a fairly good rundown of why it didn't happen, and Daryl's given me a good rundown of why it should have happened. But yeah, as I said before, it takes a lot to win a flag, and it sometimes if it doesn't click on the day, or if it does click on the day, I played in especially a lot of junior games where finals you don't make many runs. Trying to defend 100 or 150, sometimes can be a good score, and I don't think there was too much wrong in that year. I think it was just maybe that it didn't click on the day, and it has to click on the day. So,
Yep, fair enough. Lots coming up as well, though. Young Bo Garret. I've heard some whispers about him at rep carnivals, perhaps. Maybe they're looking at him. Is he quicker than you? Is he going to be better than you? When's he going to be better than you? Has he got you in the backyard?
he tries to bowl wheels and whack them, so I don't know.
Where do you get that from?
It's pretty hard to teach a kid to go out there and try and bat for 80 overs, which, is what Jez and me grew up on, is, Bobby giving you technique ideas, and now it's see ball, hit ball, and try and get a run while you can. I think I'm teaching him switch hits at the moment, so, he's enjoying his footy probably more than his cricket at the moment, but it's, he's just come off a bit of a hand injury, but yeah, I don't really care what he does as long as he loves playing it, and he loves playing it. So, he's getting quick, so he won't be too far off running over. So, yeah.
Lovely. Sean?
Yeah, I was going to say probably that just about brings us to the end, but final thoughts on ones and the club and what it meant for you and playing with the family. I think it was Paul, Barry, Smell, Ben.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ben, your old man.
Yeah, huge, massive. That's why you play, and hopefully everyone's got a feel for what me and Jez think about the club and what we've, achieved together and as mates, and as with so many different people. And as Jez said, if we've forgotten anyone, it definitely hasn't forgotten. It's just hasn't been mentioned. There's too many stories to tell. We were trying to tell some stories before we went to Ware that probably can't go to Ware.
They're going to Ware.
And it wasn't just the years that you're playing; it was the years after you finished playing and before you started playing senior cricket. The place was just, it's been huge in our lives, and to think that it's been 20 years since we won Newey, and this Saturday I just hope everyone gets around it, and as many get down to the club, and people that played, people that didn't play, people who were just around at that time just to see the old faces. It's just one of these places that you cannot come to for 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, and you'll walk in and it's like you never left, and it's still that way, with the people that you know and have got to know over the years. So it's a very special place, and it was a great time. It was a great time.
Vets, boys. I saw Jeremy Neagle's name on the vets sheet once last year, I believe. Are we going to get back together and playing vets at some stage? Are we going to see you around the club soon?
There's been talk. There has been talk. So whether everyone's body lets it happen, but we'll definitely get a game in somewhere, I think. As many of us as possible. Believe it or not, Sleek's not 40 yet. He's the youngest out of the group, and he's got a couple of years left before he gets there. But yeah, I think there will definitely be a game here and there in the near future, for sure.
Lovely, sounds good. Well, I think that just about wraps it up, boys. Big cheers to our triple premiership heroes. It's something that we talk about all the time here, and we're trying to emulate over the next few years ourselves. And we're just wrapped to see you blokes come back to the reunion on Saturday and have you part of the club in any way. And I think you're heroes to all the boys still here. So thanks for coming down and thanks for being part of this. And well, cheers to the life members and the great South Warrandyte people.
Thanks, Troy. Thanks, Sean.
Giddy up.
Boys.
Cheers, boys.
Thrilled and pumped to get out playing on the hallowed turf of Doncaster East Secondary College.
A lot of long afternoons.
Cold, harsh reality of your own talent comes through to get you.
That guy must really hate his wife.
I think this is just a classic case of make the ref make the call.